Good evening. Thank you for joining us on what has been an incredibly difficult and tragic day in Nova Scotia and in the Maritimes. Many of us awoke to news that an active shooter was on the loose in a rural part of the province. The gunman is now dead, but over the course of almost 13 hours, he left multiple victims at crime scenes that span nearly 100 kilometers. The investigation into what happened is just beginning, and we are right now waiting to hear from Nova Scotia RCMP. We plan to take you there live as soon as that begins. We're going to go there right now.
Nova Scotia RCMP. He will speak about a response to the incident. We will take questions following their comments. Bonjour, je m'appelle Corporal Lisa Croteau et je veux vous remercier pour venir et appeler la ligne téléphonique. Il y a plusieurs médias sur notre ligne téléconférence qui vont écouter et participer. Aujourd'hui, la GRC de la Nouvelle-Écosse, l'officier commandant, le commissaire adjoint Lee Bergerman, va parler des événements d'hier soir et aujourd'hui. Elle va être suivie des officiers responsables des opérations criminelles de la GRC en Nouvelle-Écosse, Chris Leatherman, qui va parler des réponses aux événements. On va prendre des questions après leurs commentaires.
Good evening. Today is a devastating day for Nova Scotia, and it will remain etched in the minds of many for years to come. What has unfolded overnight and into this morning is incomprehensible, and many families are experiencing the loss of a loved one. That includes our own RCMP family. It's with tremendous sadness that I share with you that we have lost Constable Heidi Stevenson, a 23-year veteran of the force who was killed this morning while responding to an active shooter incident. Heidi answered the call of duty and lost her life while protecting those she served. Earlier this afternoon, I met with Heidi's family, and there are no words to describe their pain. 2 children have lost their mother, and a husband has lost his wife. Parents have lost their daughter, and countless others lost an incredible friend and colleague. Heidi's family is a part of the RCMP family, and we will embrace and support them in the days and weeks and months ahead. Unfortunately, I have to also share that another one of our officers was injured and is in the hospital receiving treatment of a non-life-threatening injuries. He and his family will be supported, and we will be alongside him as he begins his road to recovery. This tragic incident has also resulted in many victims outside of the RCMP. Countless families are in mourning today. Each person who lost their family and friend, and they too will need their support. The impact of this incident will extend from one end of the province to the other. As Nova Scotians, we have to do what we're known for and come together in times of need and support each other. So right now, I'd like to turn it over to Criminal Operations Officer, Chief Superintendent Chris Leather, who can speak more about the criminal investigation. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Chief Superintendent Chris Leather. I am the Criminal Operations Officer for Nova Scotia RCMP. I would like to offer my sincere condolences to the family of Constable Stevenson and to the families of all the victims. I would also like to acknowledge the member who was injured and his family. As you can appreciate, this is an extremely difficult day for the RCMP and for the families who have been affected by these tragedies. We are in the early stages of an incredibly detailed and complex investigation that has forever changed countless lives and has left multiple victims. Our focus right now is to gather all evidence and information about these incidents and to get answers to many unanswered questions. I will provide here as much detail as I can, as this is indeed still a very early stages investigation into a very tragic situation. Last night, following multiple 911 calls, Nova Scotia RCMP members responded to a firearms call to a Portapique residence in Colchester County. When police arrived at the scene, members located several casualties inside and outside of the home. They did not, however, locate the suspect. This was a very quickly evolving situation and a chaotic scene. Many units responded, including emergency response teams and police dog services. We also received support from other police services, continue to receive support from other police services, especially Halifax Regional Police. Our focus was the safety of the residents in the immediate area. We secured the area and began a search for the suspect. The initial search for the suspect led to multiple sites in the area, including structures that were on fire. The search continued overnight and into the morning. This morning, we actively sought out the suspect through multiple communities throughout Nova Scotia. The search for the suspect ended this morning when the suspect was located, and I can confirm that he is deceased. I can also confirm that the matter has now been referred to CERT. Again, this is still an early and very active investigation that involves multiple crime scenes and victims. We will have further updates as more information becomes available, and we will let you know when that will be. There is an active investigation, as I already noted, being conducted by the Serious Incident and Response Team, that's CERT. So we're not able to provide any further details to some portions of the investigation. I want to thank the dedication and resilience of our members who worked tirelessly to locate the suspect. The coordination demonstrated by everyone involved is truly remarkable. We have reached out to all of our employees to ensure that they have wellness resources available to them during this difficult time. Thank you very much. Commanding Officer Lee Bergman and I will now take any questions that you have. Sure.
Just for the French audience, I'll read the statements in French at this time, then we'll take questions. Bonsoir. C'est un jour dévastateur pour la Nouvelle-Écosse qui restera gravé dans nos pensées pendant bien des années à venir. Les événements qui seront déroulés au cours de la nuit et ce matin sont incompréhensibles.
Okay, we are listening live to Nova Scotia RCMP giving an update from their headquarters in Dartmouth this evening. We can tell you so far that one RCMP officer is dead in this incident that unfolded over the last 24 hours, beginning at about 11 o'clock last night in Portapique, Nova Scotia, and ending with the death of the suspect, 51-year-old Gabriel Wortman, in Enfield, Nova Scotia. There are multiple sites, multiple crime scenes being investigated at this point. RCMP have not yet said how many victims there are, how many people were shot, but we can tell you that our reporters in the field have seen multiple crime scenes, including multiple bodies. The RCMP member who is dead is Heidi Stevenson, a 23-year veteran of the force, rather. She leaves behind 2 children, a husband, and parents. A second RCMP officer was injured today in these incidents. And as of right now, RCMP are saying countless people are in mourning. What you're looking at right now is RCMP member Heidi Stevenson, who is confirmed to have died in this incident today. We're just keeping you up to date while RCMP are continuing this press conference in Dartmouth at this hour. They'll take questions from reporters. But again, one RCMP member, Heidi Stevenson, a 23-year veteran of the force, is confirmed to have died in this incident, along with the suspect. We can tell you that 51-year-old Gabriel Wortman is also dead as a result of an incident that took place over 13 hours and nearly 100 kilometers of Nova Scotia, beginning in a rural area of the province and ending just about 30 minutes outside of Halifax at a gas station. There are still so many details to come in this developing story. The investigation, as mentioned, is in its very earliest stages, and it is massive in scope. Jesse Thomas has been on the road covering this for us all day, and he joins us now live from Enfield, Nova Scotia with more. Jesse, what's the latest?
Hi, thanks, Sarah. Yes, I'm here at the scene where the manhunt, the pursuit ended here outside of the Big Stop in Enfield. As we know, it was 12 hours earlier overnight in the small community of Cobequid Bay, just west of Truro, where things began. It was that call that we heard RCMP members say came in the town of Portapique last night when police initially sent out a tweet alerting that there was a firearms complaint in the area, and they were asking people at that time in the vicinity to stay in their homes. Now, neighbors did report seeing 2 or even 3 fires in that area around 11:30 last night. That's in Portapique. Now, police were on the scene there all night, and then this morning, that's when it turned into an active shooter situation. Eventually, police, they did identify the shooter as 51-year-old Gabriel Wortman and warned he may be armed and dangerous. Now, police continued to tweet updates on his location, including in locations like Glenholm, Wentworth, Debert, Shubenacadie. They warned the public that he was driving what appeared to be an RCMP vehicle and was wearing an RCMP uniform. Now, as police pursued him, we know that he switched vehicles on occasions, even getting into a smaller silver SUV at one point. Now, I was at several sites today, beginning here at Enfield, where things ended, but did a backtrack, going over those hundreds of kilometers, retracing some of the steps where this manhunt played out. And I can tell you, at a scene in Debert today, the roadway was still closed. RCMP officers on standby there. There was a car in a ditch on the side of the road with caution tape around it. Further up the road was another SUV on the side of the road with what appeared to be a body underneath a bag, and that was in Debert. From there, we traveled up the highway, up past Masstown, up Highway 4 into Wentworth. There was another police roadblock on Highway 4 between Plains Road and Tatamagouche Road. There was another body that we witnessed on the side of the road under a tarp. And so these scenarios kept playing out. More and more as we followed these steps. It was just the tragedy and the carnage that followed. And as we know now from this press conference, we're hearing some more details. We don't know exactly how many people at this point died. We do know, of course, the RCMP officer. But as we were following it this morning, Sarah, I will tell you that driving along Highway 102, there were dozens of RCMP officers positioned along the way, and at one point probably 25 cruisers zoomed by me kind of in the Shubenacadie area, and a police helicopter was going overhead, and so I knew we were close to the situation. As we came back here to Enfield, I saw the police helicopter land just over on the side of the highway, and police descended on this area. As you see behind me, the gas station was all taped off, and eventually that's where another body lay dead. And here we are now. Sarah, what can I say? It's been a long day, and the crime scene spreads throughout the province. It's tragic. We don't know the amount of deaths at this point, but we do know that this tragedy has touched many families here in Nova Scotia. For now, I'll send it back to you at the desk.
Thank you so much, Jesse. That is Global's Jesse Thomas reporting live tonight from Enfield, Nova Scotia, where things ended early this morning. Now, among the many questions yet to be answered about this horrific tragedy is who would do something like this and why? We don't know a lot about the man RCMP suspect to have been responsible. Our Ross Lord has been working on that part of the story, and he joins us now live with more. Ross.
Well, Sarah, we do know that Gabriel Wortman was a denturist. He made false teeth. Wortman worked out of an office in Dartmouth, and we know that he owned property at Portapique Beach, where the rampage started. But people we spoke to who live at or near that beach say they did not know him well.
My sister knew him because she's a denturist, and she just had new teeth made by him, and she thought he was salt of the earth.
In the massive investigation that is now underway and will unlikely, no doubt about it, take a long time, there's one obvious question on all of our minds, and that is what changed in this man's life to set him off on this horrific episode. Sarah?
Okay, thank you so much, Ross. That is Ross Lord live for us tonight in the Halifax studio. We're going to take you back now to Nova Scotia RCMP headquarters in Dartmouth, where they are now taking questions from reporters on what happened today. Let's go live now to Dartmouth, where we are going to listen into more of this press conference that's happening live this evening with Nova Scotia RCMP.
I can tell you that in excess of 10 people have been killed, but the investigation is still ongoing, and I expect to have more details in that regard in the coming days.
Thank you very much. Can you please explain what you mean by in excess of?
I'm afraid at this time I can't expand on that any further.
You mean that we don't know what they've done?
Correct. We don't have a complete, we're not fully aware of what that total may be because as we're standing here, the investigation continues into areas that we've not yet explored across the province.
Are there locations, Inspector, besides Portapique where people have died, besides the shooter?
Yes, there are several locations across the province where persons have been killed.
Can you tell us other locations,
No.
names of the towns?
I don't have those locations at my disposal. Suffice to say, there were several locations. I don't have that information currently.
How should we describe that the suspect allegedly commit crimes in Portapique and then continue in the car and commit other crimes, the same person?
Yes, we believe it to be one person who's responsible for all the killings, and that he alone moved across the northern part of the province and committed, would appear, several homicides.
Was the suspect known to police?
No, he was not.
You mentioned the serious incident response team. Can you explain their involvement? As I understand it, they're called in whenever there's a discharge of a police officer's firearm. Is that right?
Anytime there is death or injury that occurs, member of the public in this case, as I noted in my speaking points, the threat was ended, and the lone suspect has that part of the investigation has now been turned over to CERT for investigation because our officers were involved in terminating the threat.
I'm sorry, they were or they were not?
They were. An RCMP officer was.
So in plain language, he was shot by a police officer.
I can't speak to the details of what exactly occurred there, but
very unclear and hard to hear and understand. How many have been deceased in the...
no, sir, I think we're still...
Just one sec. We'll get calls from the teleconference in just one moment.
Sorry, sir.
One last question, if I may. Was there gunfire exchange between officers and the suspect in shooting activity?
I can't tell you exactly what location because I'm not sure, but at one point during the course of the evening there was an exchange of gunfire. Too early in the investigation, and we simply don't know at this time. Those are, of course, the very issues that will be under close investigation in the coming days, but I'm afraid I don't know at this time.
Inspector, the Premier of this province has described today as a double tragedy because we're all going through a pandemic. Can you speak to whether there's any relationship between COVID and what's happening here today? It's very different worlds, very different incidents.
Again, it's very early, and that certainly is an aspect that we will look at, we'll examine, but we've not yet determined whether there's any link to the COVID-19 crisis.
What is it correct to say this person was armed with a gun or some kind of firearm?
Yes, at one point during the course of the evening, he was armed.
And is this the method he used to kill people, or were there other methods?
I'm not at liberty to discuss that other than to say that he did use his firearm during the course of the evening. It's quite possible he used other methods. I simply don't know at this early stage.
One last question for me.
Yes.
As the investigation continues, have you cleared the properties that were burned? And were there victims found in the properties?
Carolyn Ray from CDC.
The clearing of properties, the investigation into other locations is ongoing. Suffice to say that those activities have only just begun.
So this is where there's some difficulty when you say in excess of 10, there quite possibly could be more victims within these properties.
That's correct, sir.
Is it correct that this man's, some of his wife or children or any of his relatives were amongst initial casualties?
Sorry, I'm not at liberty to answer that at this stage.
And when you said the term casualties, did you mean they were found, the people found in that residence were dead or both injured?
Both dead and injured, that's correct.
Are they all dead now?
No, they're not.
Okay. So they were dead and injured?
Yes.
Okay.
I was just wondering how many victims are injured that haven't died. If you can speak to that at all?
That we know of, 2 for sure, perhaps 3, because it's quite possible that victims check themselves into area hospitals, and the investigation has not quite yet caught up with that.
Anyone? Okay. We'll take questions from the teleconference now. If someone has a question. Yes, if you have a question for the teleconference. Okay, you're going to have to, can you speak a little bit louder?
Sure. It's Portapique with BTV News. I'm wondering if you can discuss that earlier today there was some information that the suspect had both what appears to be a police uniform and a police car. Can you discuss that?
Yes, I can confirm that at one point during the course of the evening hours, he appears to have been wearing, if not all, then a portion of a police uniform, and that we believe that he was driving at one point a mock-up or a vehicle that was made to look like an RCMP police cruiser.
Does that speak to sincerity from a police perspective or any kind of way that all is not for these police?
If it speaks to pre-planning on his...
Of course, that's an important element in the investigation. The fact that this individual had a uniform and a police car at his disposal certainly speaks to it not being a random act.
You have been listening to Nova Scotia RCMP giving a live press conference this evening in Dartmouth at their headquarters there. Unfortunately, the questions have been a little bit difficult to hear. We apologize for that, but that's the nature of this live event. So RCMP giving an update, at least 10 people dead in a shooting rampage that happened between 11 o'clock last night and about 11:45 this morning that took place across Nova Scotia in multiple crime scenes that are being now investigated. RCMP are saying they don't actually know how many people are dead because they have not yet been able to get to all of the areas affected by this. So, Nova Scotia's Premier talked about what happened this afternoon. Stephen McNeil was set to give a press briefing about COVID-19 today. We do have more on that in just a moment, but first, here's what Premier McNeil had to say about the shootings.
This is one of the most senseless acts of violence in our province's history. Words cannot or console the families affected by what has transpired over the last 24 hours. To the families of the victims and to those who are still feeling afraid, my heart goes out to you. Know that all Nova Scotians are with you. To the RCMP, I want to say thank you for apprehending the suspect and for doing your best to protect the citizens of our province.
We heard RCMP Chief Superintendent Chris Leather say that there were multiple hospitals involved. The situation actually led to lockdowns at several different hospitals throughout the last 24 hours. The Nova Scotia Health Authority says the Colchester East Hants Health Centre in Truro was put under restrictions at 11:35 last night. There were more access control measures put in place at the South Cumberland Community Care Centre in Parsborough, the All Saints Hospital in Spring Hill, and the Cobequid Community Health Centre in Lower Sackville this morning. Entrances were locked and access was controlled at all 4 hospitals, but they did stay open. The health authority is not able to say how many people were taken to hospital.